As a Manchester City fan, I might be worried about a lot of things, but one thing that I'm not really worried about is Manchester City getting relegated, especially because of the 115 charges against them. Now, hear me out. You see, the Premier League earns around 2.8 billion pounds from commercial broadcast rights, that is TV rights. Now, you see, Manchester City is a part of the biggest, is one of the biggest clubs in the Premier League right now, and these big clubs really, most of their matches are broadcasted. So the Premier League and all the other 20 teams that would, or the other teams that would remain in the league, they would be affected financially if Manchester City was relegated. Now, listen to this. Overseas TV contracts account for over 2 billion pounds per season. Now, that is among the Premier League clubs they broadcast. Now, you see these big broadcasting stations like NBC, like Paramount, they pay a massive amount of money to the Premier League just to broadcast matches. And teams like Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, those clubs really have a big viewership, especially overseas. So this amount of money, it is paid because these broadcast channels are guaranteed matches like Manchester City versus Arsenal, Manchester City versus Liverpool. Those are matches that are watched by a lot of people, and TVs would just reduce the amount of money that they pay to the Premier League. Now, it is estimated that Manchester City being relegated would cause a 15% to a 20% drop in international broadcast rights. That is about 300 million to 400 million pounds per season. Okay? Now, there is a central commercial partnership, that is sponsors like EA Sports and Barclays. They pay the league about 160 million per year for global marketing integration. Now, what happens is clubs like Man City are part of the reason these sponsors pay money to the Premier League, because of course the brand Man City is a brand that is followed by a lot of people. So as usual, sponsors want to associate themselves with this, and that is a result. One of the major reasons they pay this 160 million per year. So for the big teams, imagine losing Man City with its millions of followers. So brands will naturally they will want to decrease the amount of money they pay to the Premier League. So it is also estimated that a 10% to 15% drop in the 160 million, that is about close to 20 million pounds of the sponsorship payout. Now, this loss of money to the Premier League would extend to the remaining clubs. Now, listen to this. The Premier League redistributes almost all of its earnings to the clubs in the league, and that is why clubs fight so hard to maintain their position in the Premier League. And in the Championship, the competition is so fierce because teams want to climb up to the Premier League. And once a team reaches the Premier League, the financial gap between the Championship and the Premier League is so huge that clubs can afford to sign new players immediately. They can afford to increase the salaries of their players because of this redistribution. Now, imagine the Premier League has lost about 30% or about 40% of about 30% or 20% of their income. This will transcend down to the table to the other Premier League clubs. So each and every club, instead of getting over 100 million, they will now be getting about 89 million or about 90 million. You see, so that is why the Premier League cannot afford to lose Manchester City. Now, there is something else that is called International Performance Boost. International Performance Boost is based on how a league performs in the international stage. You see, clubs like Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal, those are clubs that are performing well in the international stage, in the Champions League, in the Europa League. You see, losing Man City, there is no other team that can replace Man City in terms of performance in the international level that can become part of the Big Six and be like Man City. You see, if you remove Man City, you cannot replace it with another club. You cannot replace it with Aston Villa or Everton or maybe Sunderland. You cannot. So this will automatically reduce the amount of money that the Premier League earns from international performances, and that is roughly a 20 to 25 million drop in performance bonuses. So individual clubs will automatically lose about 16 to 23 million total in annual league payouts. So it is understandable why the case is taking too long, because the Premier League does not want to relegate Man City because of these huge financial losses. So the Premier League can maybe consider other options, like maybe instead of deducting the massive points, like deducting 60 points over one season, the point deduction may run over a few seasons. Maybe Man City are told like that they will be deducted like 20 points per season, and because Manchester City is a high performing club, this would ensure that they would stay in the Premier League, but still they face the punishment that is needed for the club. Or maybe they could be banned from signing players for a specific period of time, or maybe limit the number of squad members that they are allowed to register. They can be told now, instead of registering 25 first team members, they would now only register like 20 squad members, and this means that they have to go to the academy now to get their to fill their squad or to get the remaining players. You see, those are some of the possible punishments that the Premier League can hand Man City instead of relegating them from the Premier League. So yeah, I think I'm not too worried about Manchester City getting relegated. Plus, I know Manchester City is going to appeal the case. They have the money to hire very powerful and experienced lawyers, and they have actually won a case against the Premier League a few years back, or some time back. So that's probably why the case is taking too long. Maybe they're trying to determine the best course of action to take. So yeah,